Hands-on with the OWC Accelsior 4M2 PCIe SSD. So the OWC Accelsior starts at a 1TB configuration for about $500, but you also have a 2TB, 4TB, and 8TB option available. At the time of this video, 8TB will set you back about $2,000. And that's actually very competitive with the build-to-order prices that Apple charges for the 8TB SSD in the Mac Pro. The Accelsior 4M2 does come with a soft RAID license, so you can set up RAID 1, RAID 0, RAID 1 plus 0, RAID 5, etc. And there are multiple M.2 blades inside this PCIe SSD, hence the need for a RAID configuration to get the most out of this device. But one of the cool things about this particular drive is that once you get it, it's ready to go out of the box. There is no need to go in and add your own SSDs. I think OWC will end up selling a version without any SSDs that you can add your own later. But the nice thing about these configurations is that they are ready to go out of the box. For instance, this is a 4TB OWC Accelsior 4M2 that I just installed in the Mac Pro. Be sure to install it in either an X8 or X16 PCIe slot. So like I said, the Accelsior 4M2 comes with a soft RAID license, so you can set up a RAID array. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to give it a volume name, just going to call it Accelsior 4M2. And then select the type of RAID I want to use. So I'm going to use RAID 0 for the best performance, but there's other options there as well. Certainly more options than you get with Apple's built-in RAID assistant. So I'll choose RAID 0 for the best performance and the most storage capacity. Obviously, the big caveat with RAID 0 is that if you lose one of the drives, then your whole array is lost and all your data is lost. So keep that in mind. Although SSDs are way less prone to failure than mechanical spinning hard drives. I have never experienced a RAID failure when using SSDs, but I know it's possible. So I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that. And I know people in the comments will also leave plenty of friendly reminders as well. Okay, so now we're all set up with our RAID array, RAID 0 Accelsior 4M2. So now let's open up the system profiler, and you can see here each SSD has a link width of X4. And the reason why this is possible is because the card features a built-in PCIe switch. So even though you have it installed in an X8 slot, so instead of being hard capped at X2 speeds for each drive, this allows the Mac Pro to address each SSD at full X4 speed. So now I just have a random file performing a simple write test, and this takes about 18 seconds. I did speed it up, so it's not a real-time 18 seconds that you can see here. Now I'm going to do a read test, and the same thing, 18 seconds. So the OWC Accelsior 4M2 is pretty quick on its feet, as you can tell from these tests. But we're going to run some speed tests as well. This is Blackmagic disk speed test, of course. And you can see the write speed about 4,300 megabytes per second, read 5,300 megabytes per second. Very quick speeds that you see here. Now, I'm only performing a 1 gigabyte test, so I'm going to switch over to a 5 gigabyte test. And here's where you're going to see a little bit of the throttling kick in, because when you really push this drive, it is passively cooled after all. When you really start to push the drive, it does begin to slow down a bit, as you will see here. So you'll see little hills and valleys in the speed test, but notice it's still way fast enough to easily handle 4K 60 frames per second uncompressed workflow. I mean, this thing is still ridiculously fast. I wouldn't let a little bit of throttling change my opinion about this drive because number one, it's dead silent, which is extremely beneficial for creatives. So keep that in mind. Here you see some additional throttling. This is a 16 gigabyte file transfer. So obviously you're going to have some peaks and valleys here, as you can see right there on the disk read playback. But keep in mind, this is a passively cooled drive. So it's completely silent, it's able to maintain really good performance without getting too hot. Now comparatively, I just wanted to show you the Amphitech 24 terabyte SSD that I had set up. And you can see the performance on this thing is insane. And I can run this continually and it will still push out these incredible numbers. Be sure to check out the full video for that. But one of the impressive things about the OWC Accelsior is how cool it stays when under load. So you can see I'm running multiple tests here, and you can see the temperature slowly rising. And I've sped this up like 10,000 times over. But you can see the temperature never goes past 60 degrees Celsius in my test, which is pretty impressive as hard as I was pushing this thing. And another cool aspect of the OWC Accelsior 4M2 is that you can connect it to a Thunderbolt 3 chassis like this and connect to your MacBook Pro this SSD. And of course, yes, Thunderbolt 3 has less available bandwidth to it than direct PCIe connectivity, but as you can see right here, performance is still really good. Now, I mentioned at the outset how the OWC Accelsior 4M2 comes pre-packaged with the M.2 blades installed. And that's cool if you want to just plug and play. But here's the thing, you can actually unscrew this thing and access those drives inside yourself. So if you ever want to upgrade the drives or just swap one of the drive modules out, you can do so with relative ease. There's just about 5 screws to undo. And then once you get those screws undone, you simply crack open the unit. You have this huge heat sink on top to help dissipate all that heat. And then you also have a little thermal pad right underneath that heat sink. So here you go, folks. These are the 4 M.2 blades, more specifically 4 OWC Aura P12 M.2 SSDs. And here's that thermal material that makes contact with all 4 blades right underneath that huge heat sink. And of course you have the PCIe switch in there as well. So ladies and gents, the Accelsior 4M2 is a solid option for those looking to add additional SSD storage to their Mac Pro at a competitive price point. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section. This is Jeff with 9to5Mac.